kind of talk about the TSA agents in Boston being accused of racially profiling for stopping Hispanics, blacks, and Asians.
Speaking of detaining,
we ever terrorized.
Dude, I've been.
Well, I mean, let me kind of lay
Go
it
ahead,
out.
go ahead. That's strange. That's a strange line right there.
Kind of lay it out there and talk about it. Well, I mean, we talked about this last week during the police show that we did. We talked to Lady D, and we appreciate her joining us. And I got a story that'll be interesting if she's listening tonight to kind of get into after we do this one. But you got dozens of TSA agents and officers in Boston's Logan International Airport that have come out with allegations that a program intended to help flag possible terrorists based on passengers' mannerisms has led to the rampant racial profiling of minorities, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. The behavior detection program is no longer behavior-based, but it's racial profiling program. One of these folks actually wrote in an anonymous complaint obtained by the newspaper who broke this story. This is from the dailymail.com in the UK. So basically what they're doing is they're looking at some of the traditional Middle Eastern wear that folks wear, the full beards. They're looking at brothers who walk around with their hats on backwards, things of that sort, and they are treating them a little bit different. So I won't get into the whole article. You can read it for yourself, or you can Google it if you're listening to join in the discussion, 804-447-0601. But more generally, what I want to talk about, I travel a lot. Anybody knows that I'm definitely well-traveled. I'm definitely a traveling man, and I spend a lot of time in airports, whether it be for business or pleasure. I haven't had the honor of being racially profiled in an airport, but I certainly have been racially profiled in other ways. But what I will say is this: Jay Grizzy Green sits in studio right now with his hat on backwards.
Yeah.
So you would personally be someone who would fit the description of someone that allegedly may be profiled. Now, after 9/11, we know this happened. I mean, we don't have to talk about the airport to talk about how racial profiling. I mean, the guy that shot up the Sikh temple last week allegedly had a beef with the Middle Eastern Muslims and things of that sort.
Sikh is not a Muslim.
Well, Sikh is not a Muslim, but if you look at him, if you don't know no better, they look like a Muslim. So I'll start with you, Grizz. With regard, he turned his head. He don't want us to racially profile him in his room. I'll start with you, Grizz. As far as this story is concerned with the racial profiling in the airport, what's your thoughts on that? Have you seen it yourself? Have you been privy to any information?
On the road, I've been profiled, but not in the airport because I don't fly that much. I'm
scared of flying.
I'm scared of flying. But look, I think I always try to look at things from the opposition point of view, just for the simple fact that it spurs debate. What would you rather have? I mean, I'm sure the opposition or folks who are proponents of this program would say we have to keep the skies safe. Now, you can look at a Timothy McVeigh who does not fit the profile of a terrorist getting on a plane or driving in a car or pulling up into a building in Oklahoma City, but maybe if a program was in place that could have isolated him or pointed out to him or pointed out to the powers that be that this guy may be a suspect, that may have helped save lives. So that's the opponent's argument, is that this is to help save lives. So Americans as a whole, we all have to weigh on scales. What is it, how much does it cost for our safety? It's always been that way since 9/11, and that's something I don't know the answer to myself that I struggle with, because if I was in the airport and I'm in line or a baggage claim or get ready to check in and I see Bob and Jay Grizz getting frisked, but somebody who fits the profile of a terrorist not getting frisked that hard, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be a little skeptical. I got a problem with that. I need them to get him.
When 9/11 happened, I was living in Atlanta and I was flying back and forth quite a bit, like to come home, to visit. I would say maybe a few months afterwards, I had to fly home, and they had me on the list. Like, I had not flown since 9/11. I got to the gate and they pulled me out of line. Like, I could see them checking the list and then looking at me, and looking at the list and then looking at me, and they pulled me out of line. So somebody had my picture because they were looking at me. It is the most intrusive thing, because I was on one of the small jets, so I could just put my luggage.
Crop duster.
Right, basically. So I could put my luggage on top. And it's intrusive to have them pull you out of line, go through your luggage. I mean, holding up my panties and everything, just all my stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, oh, well, your name is on the list. Well, this list just comes
what would you rather have?
Dude, I don't know. But
if it personally happens to me, honestly, I mean, the show can get on me. Callers are at the rebroadcast. They can post it. I don't mind that. For the simple fact, maybe I'm coming from. First, I have a fear of flying. Second, I don't want to be blown to smithereens.
I don't mind it, but have a valid reason.
Well, let me tell you,
they're trying to protect you.
I've been in the.
I'm not a lemming though. Don't get me wrong, audience. I'm just not gonna fall for anything. Go ahead.
I've been in that Boston airport several times after 9/11. And to hear that they're even doing this is really crazy because of the simple fact. I watched the alarm go off in that building. Nobody moved. They didn't do anything.
That's not a good sign.
Like
that is not a good sign.
I mean, they're just like, okay, I'm just going to keep on walking to my plane here. But nothing happened. It was just that kind of crazy incident. And I'm sitting here like, dude, this exit sign is buzzing. I need to get up out of here. Nothing came on the PA.
I'm curious to know, Marcus J, your thoughts on that.
Let me give you an example of racial profiling. Let me give you an example of why racial profiling is almost added to the tip jar. I'm going to give you an example why racial profiling ain't cool, right? We live in Richmond, Virginia, right?
Capital South.
We live in the capital of the Confederacy. And every time you drive past somebody who has a Confederate flag or somebody that's white, damn the Confederate flag, somebody that's white, you know, are we looking at them like if they had a chance they would lynch us? Straight up? Are we looking at them
considering
considering history? Right. It's 2012.
More apt to.
Okay, maybe so, but everybody in this room got white friends that we know don't get down like that, right? You know what I mean? So the point I'm trying to make is this is the reason why racial profiling ain't cool. Because every single white person ain't trying to string you up.
Right.
Every single person from the Middle East ain't trying to blow up your plane.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if we look at every single white person who comes to the project like they coming to get some weed, then I mean, they might not be coming to get no weed. You know,
but that's the dichotomy.
But see, that's the essence. And like I used the term last week of cultural conditioning. That's the essence of cultural conditioning. If we pay attention and we study how the world was prior to 9/11 and how the world was after 9/11, the whole point that we went to war in the Middle East was because George Bush lied. And, you know, we even had Dick Cheney come out a couple of weeks ago who admitted that what we were told at the time wasn't untrue. So now we're looking at every single person from the Middle East cockeyed. You know what I mean? We're looking at them like we expect that they're going to blow up our plane, and we want to frisk them extra. We want to frisk them extra. We going to get them extra frisking because they got a turban on or they got a dot on their head or whatever it is that they have in their traditional garb. When at the same time, you drive down Broad Street in Richmond and you get pulled over and the guy in front of you, the white boy with the loud music, he gets to keep going.
Right.
And you in the street getting frisked. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, and it's not cool. Now, we get the whole keep the skies safe.
Right.
But do we really, and we talked about this with Lady D last week, do we really want to violate regular folk just on the chance that we might get, Hakeem gave us this number last week, and I don't want to crisscross stories, but when they do the stop and frisk grids, 6% of the people that they stopped and frisked was dirty. 6%.
You talking about in the city?
In New York City, 6% of the people they were stopping and frisking was dirty, and 3% of them had guns.
I'm gonna ask the room here or anybody that's listening to the show. Does anybody have Current TV, Al Gore's station on cable?
I have. I don't watch it. But
they did a documentary on the stop and frisk in New York, and it was it's been 15 years since I lived in New York City, and I was almost like, really? And I was there when Giuliani was cleaning up Midtown and everything like that. So I was like, word, like I couldn't imagine getting pulled over just to be frisked. Maybe I don't look threatening enough, but it never happened to me. So it was like
well,
crazy.
There's also numbers. I don't have them in front of me. You can look them up yourselves. But basically, and we talked about this with Lady D last week. I mean, the vast majority of people being stopped and frisked are black and Latino.
Black folks, yeah.
Black and Latino. Now you can argue those are high crime areas. Okay,
what's the purpose?
But I would venture to say if we took the time to study the crime rates in some of the white neighborhoods, you're gonna find they wild out just as much as we wild out. Pretty much. You know, and I still feel strongly about the fact that robbing folks is a crime of opportunity. You're going to rob people who are closest to you. You're not going to crisscross neighborhoods to rob. So if you look at the same percentage of robberies and things of that sort in the white neighborhoods and the Asian neighborhoods and the other neighborhoods, you'll find that they wild out just as much as they do in the black and Latino neighborhoods.
I think that one of the solutions, I don't even know if it's a solution, but one of the things I'm thinking about as we're having this discussion is who are the people who judge or make these decisions. Like, who are the folks that are doing the enforcement of these laws?
Well, you got the police that are enforcing them, but you also have the city council and the city government who are writing these laws, who are putting them into order. Now, we're specifically talking about NYC because they're the ones that actually do it. And we had the lady cop on with us last week who spoke to her town. Now, I want to go and give our last story that's kind of similar to this. Well, not really similar, but it's NYC and it's police involved. Over the weekend, Darius Kennedy was a knife-wielding man who was shot dead in the street by police. Now, here's the backstory. Apparently, the police happened to find him smoking weed in the street, and they tried to get him. They was trying to get him to stop. He refused to stop, and he ends up pulling out a very large butcher knife. And there is a very slow speed chase that was on foot, and he's walking backwards down the street, and they're pepper spraying him, and he's not dropping the knife, and he's fussing at them, and they're fussing at him to drop the weapon. He's refusing, and eventually he lunges at a couple of police officers, and with his knife, and eventually they take him down, and he dies. So I'll reserve my opinion for the end. I'm gonna start with Carlton on this one. Do you think, based on what you've seen or what you've heard of this story, what are your thoughts with regards to this shoot?
It was a justified shooting. Unfortunately, if you've done everything you can non-lethally to subdue the victim, or I don't want to say victim, but the alleged dead. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to call him at this point. But whatever it is, they took means to subdue him without having to shoot him. And that was the whole point of the matter. Shoot first, ask questions later. No, that's not the mentality that they're trying to portray.
You're a law and order type of dude.
Right.
Here's what's your thoughts?
My thoughts, like we said going into this segment, like, who is making those decisions? It'd be different if you had a multicultural or it was equitable amongst the powers that enforce these rules. But more than likely, in these jurisdictions, it's never that case. It's different if you had, i.e., like in the 60s, Black Panthers police, they own neighborhoods.
Right.
And they didn't want, Caucasians, or you didn't want the municipality police there policing them, because we could police our own neighborhoods, and more than likely, we kept crime down because them fellas was holding heat all the time.
Yeah, well, we've seen the pictures. We know how they did.
So when you have people who are not represented in police districts and city councils and positions that can enforce or pass these laws, you naturally are going to get this. You're going to get stuff like that, which is, it's probably some precinct in the city that some lieutenant says, this is okay. 9 times out of 10, it's Chief O'Kelly or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's not Chief Johnson.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when that gets, to me, I think that will be going towards a solution and fixing, police issues like that, to stop and frisk. Because if I grew up in New York, I end up becoming a police officer. I end up on a police community board or something like that. And I've experienced it myself, but I'm only one of maybe 15 people on the board.
Right.
My one voice is going to get drowned out. Them other 14 want that to happen.
Here's my thing. I think the climate of racial profiling, stop and frisk, and things of that sort has the police officers predisposed to expect the worst from Black and Latinos. I'll give you an example. The guy who shot up the theater in Aurora came out of the movie theater in full riot gear, holding weapons, and the police basically talked him down to surrender. Now, apparently he surrendered without any drama, but I would venture to say if that was a black dude in full riot gear,
as soon as the mask came off,
a black dude in full riot gear with a gun in his hand, they might have taken him down before they had a chance to talk him down.
That's
true. So you get a lot of our white brothers and sisters who will look at situations and they say, you know, and this is not me speaking generally because I've had these conversations, so I feel comfortable saying that. You've had a lot of them that'll say, well, I think you're being a little bit insensitive. You got some black folk that feel the same way, but unless you've been pulled out your car,
you don't know. Unless
you've been stopped for not doing anything wrong, unless you've been questioned when you are in a place where you frequent. The cop don't frequent that area, or else you'd have seen him before. Right? This is an area that you frequent, so unless you've been through it, it's hard for you to have that kind of opinion. So,
ninja cops.
So I would venture to say, for those people who think that is a righteous shoot, I understand where you're coming from. I have a hard time disputing that. But what I will say is this. Instead of gut shotting the guy or chest shotting the guy, is it possible that maybe you could have arm shot him or leg shot him to basically try to subdue him since the pepper spray didn't work? Or maybe non-lethally shoot him in the shoulder or something like that to keep from actually killing him? Because we're talking about the same police department who shot Abner Louima 51. They shot at him 51 times when he was trying to pull out his wallet to tell them who he was. These are the same police department who killed Sean Bell the night before he got married, coming out of the strip club, going to finishing his bachelor party when none of his crew had weapons. It's the same police department. So I think it is fair to have that sort of correlation.
I have a question to anybody who knows anybody in police and law enforcement, anything. I have a question if you're listening to the show, if you know somebody who's in law enforcement on local, state, or federal level. Ask them this question. What are you afraid of? You the one that's got the gun. Now, you might not think, I'm sure they got training to say, the criminal has the weapon or whatever. But really, what are you afraid of? And I think cops, for the most part, have this innate training and fear because their lives are on the line, but you signed up for it. You don't see nobody going into the Army. Of course, they got going off to war saying, I don't know. I'm really worried about catching a bad one today for my country. He signed up and wanted to be in the infantry because he wanted to be in the infantry.
So why shoot first?
What are you afraid of, cops?
Okay, but see, we're negating what they've already tried to do. They tried to subdue him peacefully.
You got 3-4 cops?
Okay, but
on
still,
one dude.
Okay, 3-4 cops on one dude. That man had
8.
First of all,
8. It was actually 8.
What are you scared of? 8 cops?
Okay, again, suppose he wields a knife on them.
8 cops, dude.
But the question that I'm asking is,
what
happens when he wields a knife on them?
It's a fair question, but my response...
It's not a common sense question.
It's a fair question. My response to it is, what is the reach of a knife? If it's 11-inch knife and a 3-foot arm, so that's about a 6-foot radius.
Honey Hanzo
it's about a 6-foot radius. So if you're about 12 feet from the guy, he's not harming you. Right. He's got a knife. He's clearly high on something. He's irrational. I think they use the word maniac. He's clearly wilding out. Nobody's going to. Nobody's going to dispute that.
If I was one of the 8, one of y'all catch this knife while the other 7 of us.
Well, I mean, I'm not willing to go there. But
you get my point though.
I get your point, but my concern is the police departments in the United States, not just New York, have a shoot first, ask questions later policy with regards to minorities
and I think it comes from
in
fear.
This country, and I agree with Grizzly that it does come. I think it does come from fear. When
read the ISIS papers,
and I'm not gonna sit here and say that they don't shoot white folk on sight. I'm not saying that, but what I will say is you don't hear them stories. Just like you don't hear the story about the guy in the South. It was either Mississippi or Arkansas last week who gets arrested. He's in the backseat of a police car with his arms tied behind him. He's left-handed, but he got a bullet hole in the right side of his head, and they said he shot himself. What's up with that? Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. We're going to leave it there. We're going to take our final break of the night, and then we're going to get into our ransom, our closings. Jay Grizzly Green, April P., Carlton Banks, Marcus J. Ain't no half stepping.
Yep.
Keep it locked.